This is a response to coming out of atheism's and knockdown argument for the existence of God. And it's my first video, so it's not probably not going to be too coherent, but I want to try to, be concise and be on point. Your entire argument, all three of your syllogisms, are based on the assumption that mathematical formulas are not descriptive of the universe, but rather that they are inherent in the universe. And the problem with this is that we made mathematical formulas, humans did, to describe the way something acts, so that we can later model it. Which you mentioned in your video, you mentioned fractal research. Here's the thing, fractal research isn't, when you talk about fractal research, they don't mean that these formulas are inherent in the universe. What they mean is that you can use the formulas that describe the universe to also model universes. And they do this in video games a lot. If you've ever tinkered around with like a game engine or something, I'm not particularly good with them, so don't expect me to show you anything really impressive. But like, say you went to use the Unreal developer kit, the one that a lot of video games are made with. It has an intuitive physics built into the system that takes things like the rate of acceleration into account. The rate of acceleration being 9.8 meters per second, or 9.8 meters per second, or 9.8 meters second squared, blah blah. And they then use that to model a virtual reality. And you talk about this in your video like it's something that's supposed to be very impressive, and it's really not. I mean, when you say that someone used a mathematical formula to model a mountain, alright, here's the thing, all shapes have a formula that you can use to describe them. So I have my cup here, you could say it's a cylinder, there's technically not a top there, but it's pretty cylindrical shaped. You can have a mathematical formula that can describe the shape of a cylinder. And even if it's not a perfect cylinder, you can still adjust that formula to fit the specific object. So, you talk about your cup. Well, we can graph curves. You can graph a curve. You can graph the curve of your cup that you have there. But that formula that we use to graph it isn't inherent in it. It's descriptive of the curve of the cup. That's how math is supposed to work. I mean, let's take an example. Actually, I guess your cup works fine. I mean, in my cup, clearly there's not a formula for cup. There's a formula that can describe an individual cup, or a cup that's been mass produced, or something like that. But that formula we can use it to describe something. Because we can use it to describe something, we also use it to model more of them. So if you have, let's make it something easy so that someone can do it on paper with us. You have a circle. You can make a diameter as a line, alright? And then you can take that line, and you can do that line about 3.14 times, and curved around, and what you can end up with is a circle. And the reason for this is because the formula for finding the perimeter of a circle is diameter times pi. Alright? And that's pretty much it. And you can make this more complex. So if I drew a line on my computer, and then I had a program that could wrap that line around, I could give it the formula diameter equals pi. Diameter times pi equals the perimeter of this object, and then set in the rate at which it should curve. You could do that with a mountain too. It would just be a lot more complex. But that doesn't mean that the formula is inherent in the thing. The formula is describing the way the thing looks. And so we can take that formula, which describes the way the thing looks, and then model other things that look like it. And I'm going to go into some of your other points here, but that is the major point here, or the major pitfall of your argument, is that right there, that mathematical formulas are inherent in the universe rather than descriptive of it, is simply not true. I mean, this is your shirt in these videos is white, okay? But white isn't inherent. It doesn't have a. The universe didn't instill this thing with a meaning. White is a word we use to describe the way something looks, or the color of something, more specifically, or the lack of color, I guess would be more specific. It's not inherent in the way that you mean. And I'm gonna look at some of these other premises, because your last two premises specifically, in your last syllogism, or I guess the two premises in your last syllogism, aren't really consistent. But I mean, even if they were, your first premise in your first syllogism isn't cogent. It's not. It's a personal opinion, and you have to grant that personal opinion to grant the rest of the syllogism. And so if you want people to accept this argument, you're going to have to prove what you've said. The preface of your arguments, essentially, you're going to prove that. But going to your last syllogism, it's pretty much that in order for, if the universe shows signs of these mathematical formulas that have to be sustained by a creative intelligence with a personality, then a God must be doing this, essentially. And God has these powers, and then your conclusion is God must be the creator of the universe. Here's the thing: if I can bake a cake, and you can bake a cake, and somebody sees a cake somewhere, guess what? That doesn't mean that it's one of us to cook the cake. You said that God has these powers. I have the ability to make a cake. You have the ability to. I don't know if you have the ability to make a cake. We're saying it for the sake of the argument. But that doesn't tell us who made the cake. Actually, you've just said that God has these powers. What if I said that the flying spaghetti monster also has these powers? Is the flying spaghetti monster now the creator of the universe according to your syllogism here? You have to prove that God has these powers, and you also have to prove that your preface of this argument that the mathematical formulas are inherent in reality rather than descriptive of it. Because even if I granted all these premises, except for the last one, all it says is that was that something had to have created the universe, not what created it. And that's essentially it. There's a second part of this video I want to talk to you about that's not related to your a knockdown argument for the existence of God, and that is your 3-minute preface of your third video, which was essentially you complaining about YouTube trolls. If you're serious about talking to people or serious about discussing these sorts of things, giving us 3 minutes of you complaining about trolls is pointless. Everybody has trolls. Atheist YouTubers have to deal with trolls. Trolls are going to troll no matter what. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep doing this. But having to sort through 3 minutes of rambling about them just to get to the argument is really frustrating for anyone who actually wants to talk about this stuff. And I understand your frustration with trolls. I get it. I really do. And I understand that there are a lot of atheists who troll and are mean or intentionally harass people. They've chased away some really good Christian YouTubers because of that. And but it's really obnoxious to hear about it for 3 minutes when you're not even really going to talk to those sorts of people. But hopefully you'll reply. Hopefully this makes sense. If not, ask me and I'll do my best to clarify what I mean when I say something. And have a good evening.